You're listening to Creative Campfire, where creatives like you come to talk shop, share stories, and light the path for one another. Whether you're here to learn, grow, or feel a little less alone, welcome to the fire. If you're ready to jump into the new year with focus and clarity of where you're going and what your destination is, then I encourage you to sign up for my goal setting workshop happening January 7th and 8th from 9 to noon p.m. Pacific time. The one thing I've learned about running this workshop for the past 5 years is people don't need more advice. They need space to reflect, space to dream, and space to actually sit down and map out what they want to do next. That's why so many people return to this workshop year after year, because we're actively doing the work together. I recently hosted a small group session, and Joni Simon from the Bite Shop shared about how powerful it was to dedicate the time to think clearly, get unstuck, and look into her blind spots. That is exactly what we're going to do over these 2 days. We're going to reflect, we're going to dream forward, we're going to create a vision, we're going to write some goals and turn those goals into milestones and action for you to hit the ground running. So grab an early bird ticket before December 31st. It's $47 and come join us. You can grab the link in the show notes. All right, let's get back to the show. Hey everybody, welcome back to the fire. I am super excited to bring this guest to you. He has been working on this amazing wiki for almost 5 years here and there. It's been a real labor of love. It's called the Photo Glossary. It's a Substack, Instagram, wiki with over 500 entries. And he's traveled from coast to coast in the US. He grew up in Rhode Island, made his way to San Francisco for a hot minute with GoPro, back in New York now. And he's kind of done it all. He's been a drone pilot, an assistant, a digi, a photographer. He loves to road trip. And that's what we're going to get on board with this travel adventure talk, that we're going to go down many, many avenues and pull over to talk about all kinds of things in this conversation. Sam, it is so wonderful to have you here.
Shelly, thanks so much. Thanks for the intro. That's great. Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
So as I mentioned, and as we talked in the pre-roll that no one gets to hear because we didn't record it, you had mentioned that, you obviously have traveled coast to coast and done all different kinds of things, but like what got you into this creative, crazy world that we're in?
Oh, yeah. I started photography pretty young. It's kind of like a classic trajectory, skateboarding, snowboarding. The photography of action sports really drew me in. Even before that, my parents are both creative people. My dad's an architect. My mom paints for fun. So there was always Smithsonian's, there's Architectural Digest, Architectural Record, Nat Geo. They're all around the house all the time. So there's definitely a lot of hours spent as a kid flipping through, these classic 90s magazines and 80s, because they probably weren't all thrown out, right? So they're still around.
Right, that epic collection of Nat Geo, right? Yeah.
I think eventually they got cleared out. But so just kind of getting drawn into that. And then even as I got older, in high school, the magazine scene was so fun, and Wired became a thing. All those late 90s, early 2000s magazines were really big, and Sports Illustrated. And then, Trans World, Thrasher, not as
Thrasher,
much, because the photos in Thrasher were always not as good as Trans World or Skateboard Mag. Skateboard Mag was the one that really hit when that came out later. And then Trans World Snowboarding, Snowboarder Mag, Frequency, which is now Snowboarder's Journal. Those were kind of all what really sucked me in. And then really I want to be a pro snowboarder, but that wasn't.
That didn't happen, I take it.
That didn't happen. So I was chasing that and then shooting at the same time, and just kept on with it. In college, I went to Colorado College, which is why I was in Colorado Springs. And their art program is pretty good, but it's really small, and they don't really have a photo program necessarily. So, or at least back then. So I minored in photo, majored in sociology, which I found that sociology is like a really good fit for photography. And then, yeah, just kind of kept going, ski bumped around, did photo stuff. Then realized there was like a moment where I was living in Utah to do snowboarding stuff, and I was like trying to find photographers to work with. But like all the photographers that live there, it's like action sports or family photographers. And I ended up chatting with this family photographer who was actually from Rhode Island, where I grew up. And he was like, "Yeah, I'll bring you on, whatever." He's like, "But if you want to do like photography that's not family consumer photography, he's like, you can't be in Utah. Like you gotta go back to.
You gotta move.
Yeah, you gotta move. You gotta go back to New England, go back to New York, whatever." So I moved back to Rhode Island, interned, and worked in Boston for like a little less than a year. And everyone in Boston was like, "You gotta go to New York. Like go to New York, and then when you have those skills, you can move back to Boston." But they're like, you got to.
Interesting, right? They're sending you from the mid market to the big market to come back to the mid market.
Yeah, everyone was like, you got to be in New York or LA, and then like once you kind of learn how things work, then you can move if you want to. But so then went to New York, got an apartment in Bed-Stuy in 2009 with a friend who grew up in Brooklyn. Then what happened? I kind of like kicked around trying to get internships and assisting work as like, entry level fourth assistant stuff. I mean, back then it was still like, it was right after 2008, so it was tricky, but productions were still like huge. It was like film and digital and lots of like medium format digital backs. And I ended up getting an internship with Kenneth Willard, who some people may or may not know. At the time, he was like the biggest name in beauty photography. So he shot like all of Maybelline or all of L'Oreal. And that was and then I worked for him for about a year, which was nuts. It was like Beyonce, J-Lo, like anyone who was with L'Oreal or Maybelline, just chaos. But his reputation preceded him. I don't think he's working much anymore because he's just so difficult. But his work is pretty stunning, and it was stunning back then. And it's one of those things where you're not so much learning from him, but you're learning from he would hire the best of the best. Like if you were not number one in your category, he didn't want to work with you. So like his first assistant was Taya Talia for a long time. But I'm not sure what she's up to now, but she was just like no nonsense, like just an amazing lighting director. Really, really knew her stuff. So I learned like a ton from her. I learned a ton from like his digital techs. So you're just kind of like working. The like producer, it was like North Six would produce them. So you're just kind of like always working with these people who really know everything. You're just like learning. The things I learned from Kenneth Willard was really like the business side. Like his thing was just like capture all the money. Like just take as much as you can. And I try to like instill this in people now where you're like, the budget is, 100% and you want most of that money flowing through your business. Like you should pay the assistants, you should pay the crew.
That's an interesting point to drive home because I don't think a lot of people think about it that way.
Yeah.
And do you know why he decided to take on that responsibility? Like, did you see the why behind it at the time?
From a business perspective, it was the best way to go. Like, I forget which agency he was with, but they were like, super high powered. And it was just like he owned the retouching company that would do all his retouching. So it was just like he had this like full circle. He didn't really have like a production company, but he had it. I guess the production company would change, but usually they were working with the same production company. Well, like the other thing was like he had a rental company for gear.
Mm-hmm. That's
only
common.
Existed on paper, but because of that, like there were jobs we were doing at Pier 59 that would be like $100,000 a day of equipment. Like it was just insane. But about half of that equipment he owned. So therefore he was getting on top of whatever his crazy fee was at the time, where he was getting like day rates of like six figures.
Right.
Then he get
Which we don't
another,
see today.
which don't exist anymore. Even for
Yeah.
names like him or Annie Leibovitz, they don't get it anymore either. But then he was getting another 50K in revenue from the equipment.
Right.
And then he would get, and then all the retouching would go through his retouching company. So
So he was
like,
getting a markup on that too.
so that, and those retouching contracts were like six figures because there was so much retouching happening, you know, because they were doing like calendars and all the editor, like all the ads you saw globally were going through that retouching house, which is really small. It was only like six people, but so it's just like this circle of like cash flow that just kind of like fed on itself.
Yeah.
And then he like bought a building, like moved his studio into a building, which that ended up being like my responsibility, which was like nuts because I was 25 and no construction experience. But like, yeah, but it's just that lesson always stuck with me, which is like you're trying to just the way the industry works. Like you want to like have as much money going through your business, or you want to like have your hands in all those different pots. And that's something that has changed a lot where like photographers used to do that more. And now it's like production companies do it or studios do it. Like now if like Milk or like Smashbox or they're the ones who are like trying to get all their hands in the pots, you know, they'll do the retouching, they'll do the pre-production, they'll, you know, and like if
They'll
you're
do casting.
they'll do casting. And if you're the photographer, you're like, oh, I'm making 10K a day. And you're like, yeah, Smashbox just made 100K a day off of your shoot. Like you need to be more in the mix as far as like making a sustainable business. And assisting and teching is the same way, like where you want to like own some gear that you can rent.
Well, let's dive into that, right? Because that's kind of been the heart of the last few years of your life, right?
Yeah.
Where, you know, you worked as an assistant with this person, right? And you probably got other assistant jobs after that and then became a digitech. And then I know now you fly drone because that's something we talked about offline, but we're bringing it online now.
Yeah.
So if we look at these kind of three, even as a light tech, right? So whether you're an assistant or a digi or a drone or a light tech, all important crew people. Let's talk about these important roles and kind of how to take that example of like what you learned of like, how do you maximize that or how do you increase your skill set and what you're bringing to the table in a way that people may not be, you know, it may not be so evident, like it may not be so obvious.
Yeah. Back then it was more like everyone had their role and you could like make a lot of money just doing your role. Now it's more like everything's about speed. It's like how many shots can you do in a day? How light of a crew can you have? Like what software and technology and equipment can you use to have a light crew getting the same results and at a faster pace? And I've seen that dramatically change in my career. And I've done a lot of e-com work as like a tech. And yeah, I got to be like instrumental in like kind of like pushing these workflows and making them more and more refined. And you're just getting more and more shot counts. I do think we've kind of like topped out. Like people will come and be like, oh, I need 100 shots a day. And you're like, it's just like, yeah, you can do it, but the quality is going to be like super, super low. So like, I think like hitting like where a lot of photo shoots are like a lot of interiors and architectural shoots are like 20 shots a day now, which is high, but I think it's kind of maxed out. And then like same thing with like on figure, it's like 30 or 40 shots a day where you're like still keeping up the quality. I just like the thing that people don't like to hear is that photography is based in physics and physics are real. And like, you can only dress and undress a model so many times in one day. And there's all these like little things you can do to make it more efficient. Like you put the set changing room next to the set and all this stuff. But like, it's still like,
it's still time. There's still time involved.
It's still time. It's still more efficient than doing it all with AI. That's one thing that I think people are learning the hard way right now. But it's just, yeah, all those roles are starting to blend. I've always kind of been like a proponent of hybrid roles, which is kind of a controversial thing to say in the like crew world, because so many people are like, I just tech, and like they don't want to work on shoots where you have hybrid roles basically. But the way the industry is going is like everyone's becoming a hybrid role.
Yeah.
And like
I
whether
mean,
you
you see that more and more. I think,
yeah,
and
whether
I
you
think a lot of that comes like if we back up into like movies, right? Like big theatrical releases
yeah,
where there is kind of this hierarchy of like, you've got the director at the top next to the producer, right? And then you have the hierarchy pyramid that kind of comes out from that. And those people then report in and up the ladder.
yeah,
And there is like, the best boy responds to this person that responds to this script, who responds to this
yes,
line
yeah.
producer, and so up the ladder. And a lot of what we adopted out of commercial photography comes from that.
Yeah, that's a great example because a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah. And I think the thing that we're seeing now, to your point, is a collapsing of that pyramid, right? So it used to be a
Yeah,
very top, like a lot of leaders or a lot of people stacked on top of each other, right? A really narrow, tall pyramid. And now
right.
we're seeing a big flattening of that pyramid where
Yes.
you've got fewer people, like you said, the hybrid roles. And I see that a lot in food photography, right? You might have a food stylist who does light propping, or a prop stylist that does light food,
Or food
or like a photographer who's their own digi.
right. Yeah, yeah. Or yeah, I mean some food stylists shoot themselves and or some food photographers are doing
Right.
styling themselves. Yeah.
I mean, and there's definitely can be people, like I've had to wear all the hats. I've had to be my own light tech digi,
Yeah.
prop and food style and shoot in my studio.
Yeah. Exactly.
And there's a time and a place for all of it, but the reality is also to your point of like, how do you maximize the time, and how do you be the most efficient, and how do you keep the quality up even if you're trying to reduce the number of roles on set?
Yeah. I think the big thing I try to stress with people is like even though roles are reducing, I do think the chain of command should stay the old school way. Like like everyone, even if you're like the assistant and the tech and you have a hybrid role, and it's like a flat crew, you're still out of line if you go talk to the client without talking to the photographer first. It's
Correct.
like the photographer
There's still a chain of command.
Yeah, there's still a chain of command. The photographer is the director. You see that a lot with the Photo Glossary started out of this just collapse of like knowledge in the industry and this flattening. So there's like a lot of people who are shooting now who never assisted or who've never been on a big set, and they just don't know this stuff because they were never exposed to it. They don't know.
Right.
So it's like they're on a big set, and then all of a sudden, they're like a second assistant or third assistant, and they're trying to talk to the client, and they're just causing problems. It's just like, don't do that. And same thing with like photographers, where you're like, okay, maybe you have a business shooting by yourself, but now you're getting these commercial jobs. It's like your job to manage the crew. It's like you're the intermediary, you're the director. Like the client and the producer talk to you, and then you direct everyone else. You direct the stylist, you direct the casting, you direct the models, you direct crew. And like that same, it's just like everyone's been on a job where someone on the crew is trying to steal the photographer's job. Like everyone's been on that job. And I feel like it's happening more and more. And it's just like, there is this communication of like how sets should run. And I think it's not because people don't want sets to run like that. It's just because they haven't been exposed to it before. Like they haven't been exposed to a set that runs properly and efficiently. And so they don't know what they're missing out on, basically. And
I think to your point, right? Like you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And it's also, it just made me think of like, it's like the salmon swimming upstream. So it's like, you are, to your point, like if you're the photographer, you're the linchpin between those two worlds. You're the linchpin between the client world or the agency client world and your crew world. And you're the person. So like information needs to funnel into you from client agency and then out of you to your crew. And then information from your crew funnels to you and then out to the agency or client.
Yes.
And if you have a really good producer, then the producer actually is that like sidekick, that wing person to the photographer that can help manage that communication going upstream and downstream. Or you have a really, really good, like, I don't know, like studio manager sometimes can also play that role.
Yeah. Or just like if you're on a big enough shoot where you have a lighting director and you're a crew, like you go through the lighting director. You don't talk to the photographer because anything you say to the photographer doesn't know what light, like what's going on with a power pack or this or that. Like the lighting director and the other assistants know. So it's like if you're the tech and then you're telling the photographer it's underexposed or all this, like you're just stressing out the photographer. Like the photographer has to deal with the client, has to deal with the mood board, has to deal with the talent. Like you got to go through the lighting director. And I think that is like techs. This is something I see on a lot of shoots that drives me nuts. Is that like techs don't go through the assistant. Like they'll tell the photographer something wrong with the lighting or the image, but it's like you have to tell the assistant because the assistant is the one who's like turning the knobs. And the assistant is the one who's like making the light, making those things happen. And like basically, if you go around the assistant, you're just getting the assistant in trouble. Like you're just making the assistant look bad at the end of the day. Because like 9 times out of 10, when there's a problem on set, like a logistical problem, it's only a problem to you. Like you talk to someone else and they're like, oh no, we're doing it this way for a reason. But if you like bring it up to the photographer or the client, God forbid, then they think there's like an actual problem. But it's like, oh no, that light is like doing this because whatever. Like, I mean, people do crazy stuff. Like people will fire lights just for the performance, which I'm a big proponent of. Like I'm a big proponent of the big show. Like if you have the budget, spend it. Like if you need 10 lights to justify the budget, but only one light is working, like go for it. Like just make the client happy. People love this stuff. People love the performance of being on set. Like one thing that everyone learned during COVID, which at the beginning of COVID, some people were like, oh, sets are going to be dead. Like no one's coming back to set after COVID. And I just never understood that because clients love being on set. Clients love the big show. They love catering. They love schmoozing with the models. They love schmoozing with the photographers. Like this is fun for them. Their normal day is they're stuck in the office or they're just stuck on Zoom meetings all day. Like
they just spent 6 months putting this idea together and now they actually want to see it like come together.
They don't, and they don't know any of the technical whatever that's coming together to make their vision happen. Or some of them don't even know. Some of them are even more removed than that. Like I was doing like DIT work the other day, and of course my computer station got stuck next to the guy who had like Zoom meetings all day. And so I'm listening to this guy just like pitch numbers and like talk about numbers all day. And it was kind of driving me nuts because my like DIT work was very focused. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, he could have just stayed home. But he doesn't want to stay home. He wants to be in the action. He wants to see the magic happen. Like we are creating magic. Like we're doing things you can't do with AI. Like we are making beautiful things that move numbers. Like at the end of the day, these shoots are like either making people like convince people to do stuff, whether it's buying something or getting involved in a nonprofit or whatever it is. But it's like really powerful and people want to be a part of it. And the people who are paying for it want to be a part of it too. Because it's like, you're going to pay all this money. You don't want to just stay at home and like watch it from like Capture One Live. Like you can, the technology.
Watch it on Zoom.
But why? Like why? Like what's the point? It's just like, even if you have no input on set, it's way more fun to be on set and then like be on your computer, And I think that's something that has been lost. Like going back to Kenneth Willard, he was a master of that. Like he was a showman on set. Like, yeah, he was crazy, but like, he put on like a theatrical performance almost. And all the big names do that. Mark Seliger, Annie Leibovitz, they're all putting on this like theatrical performance. It's not just about impressing the client. Like, yeah, the client gets impressed, but it's also like you're pulling the best out of these talent, like the models. Like it's a little different when you're working not with a human model, but when you're like, if you're working with product or something, it's a little different. But when you're working with like talent, like the best way to get the most out of the talent is put on the show. Like make them feel important, whether it's a CEO or a mom or an expensive model. Like you don't want them to show up at some like dumpy studio and feel like everything is like not important. You want them to feel important, and it shows on camera. Like it really does. And that's why these big photographers are getting like results that you can't get, because they're doing this crazy pre-production, this crazy productions that makes it like it does show on camera, whether people want to admit that or not, it does. And it's like, I mean, it's kind of all another reason for the big show is like you can charge more, right? Like if you're putting on the big show and everyone's happy and there's all this equipment and there's a fancy studio and catering, you can charge more on top of that. So that's another thing to think about too, where it's like people are under so much pressure to cut costs. And so it's like photographers now just have to be smart about how to cut costs. Like what costs can you cut that won't like affect your bottom line, you know? Or like how can you spend money in a way, like, yeah, having a hybrid role, like maybe you don't need 2 assistants and a tech, you just need like 1 assistant and a tech, or if it's a travel job, can you just do 1 assistant who will tech and light because clients don't want to send people, you know, on, like that's really where the hybrid roles really come in, is like when you're shooting like architecture work, hotel work, interiors, like clients aren't concerned about your day rate. Clients are concerned about what it costs to put you and the equipment on a plane and then your hotel costs. And that's kind of where, going back to like the hybrid roles, like people who don't want to do hybrid roles, they're missing out on entire genres of photography. Like if you're a tech and you refuse to learn lighting, you're never going to get an architectural job. And maybe you don't care about that. Maybe that's fine.
Right.
But architectural genre is really fascinating, and it will take you to amazing places. Like you won't be in the studio.
Right.
You will not be bored.
Same with hospitality, right?
Yeah.
So I mean,
hotels, yeah. Like
yeah, and I think what's interesting is like if we just stay on the digital tech role for a minute, because I find like a lot of people come into photography, if you're coming more of a traditional route, right? You might come in as an assistant, like us, you know, helping put up C-stands and modifiers and moving, schlepping, that kind of stuff. And then I see a lot of people move from that to like digi, or like that would be like the step up. And then there's a lot to learn to be a digi. Yeah. But one of the things with digi is kind of that station idea, that equipment piece that you touched on earlier. Do you want to talk a little bit about like, you know, when you're in that role and how it actually is like there's an equipment fee and your like day fee?
Yeah, this is big for assistant, but it's big for photographers too. And a lot of photographers now don't know this. Like you should always have a line item for your equipment, whether you own it or whether you're renting it. Like that line item should be there. It's different if it's consumer facing, you know, if you're shooting weddings and you're shooting families and stuff, like you can't really put that line item in. But anything commercial, anything from the smallest jobs to the biggest, like there should be a line item for equipment. And that is like a very industry standard, and it's a very traditional way of how a lot of photographers make money. Like, because day rates are shrinking, so maybe your day rate, you're not really making any profit. But then if you can make profit off equipment you already own, like you should be charging for your camera, you should be charging for your computer if you're bringing it. Like so many photographers make the mistake of like, they're just like, oh, we're going to tech with my computer. And you're like, that's fine, but make sure you're charging for that. Like you should, like that's an expensive piece of equipment, and it's vital to the shoot, whether you're tethering or whether you're downloading the cards.
Well, and to your point, right? Like it also allows you to take that money and apply it to a future purchase. So if you're like, oh, I want to upgrade to a new camera, or I'm going to get a new laptop in 3 years, or I'm going to buy whatever piece of equipment. Right. That money, one, is like the wear and tear. Like you drive a car, right? There's wear and tear on your car. This is wear and tear on your equipment that you need to be putting money aside. And that money line item helps do that.
Or it can even just make, like, that's how it should work. And that's how it worked in the past.
Right. But now it's a little bit like, it's like that is like kind of the profit margin.
That's the profit margin, like, especially like on editorial job. Like an editorial job, a lot of photographers are literally making no money, right? But frequently media outlets will have equipment budgets. So like if you own the equipment, not that you're going to buy all these like super expensive lights, but like if you own your camera and your laptop, you can charge a fee for that. And now that job where you were making like a $300 day rate, you're now making $1,000 instead, you know, and the companies are perfectly happy to pay for that equipment fee because it's just like, you know, they might not be happy to pay for your $5,000 day rate, but they'll pay for your $5,000 of equipment. It's a crazy thing, but it's real. Like as an assistant, I've had situations where I invoiced as a piece of equipment. Like jobs where they're like, we're not paying for crew. And the photographer was like, that's fine. Like, but you're going to pay for this equipment. And they're like, yeah. You know, and then the photographer turns around to me and they're like, okay,
so this is how you're going to bill me.
Is a pro photo pack. That's your line item. And I'm like, well, I don't care as long as I get paid. And it's just like that. So like as an assistant, I think it's important to the same thing. Like when you can afford to buy equipment, you should, because it will pay for itself. I mean, the rule of thumb is you want to pay for itself in 10 days. That's like a pretty standard rule of thumb.
You mean different pieces of 10 equipment. Days or 10 shoots or whatever? Like 10 uses?
10 shoot days. Sorry. Yeah, 10 shoot days.
Yeah.
So like that's why like a lot of like you'll see a camera rental fee from a rental house is like $400 because it was a $4,000 camera. Or like a laptop is like $300 or $400 because it was a $3,000 or $4,000 piece of equipment. And that's like as an assistant, I think I just like in the past you could kind of get away with not owning equipment as an assistant, but I feel like now you really have to own something, and it doesn't even have to be expensive. It can just be like just something. I mean, one thing photographers need to be better about is willing to pay assistants for their equipment.
So like what kind of equipment have you personally done or seen like assistants bring?
I mean, as a tech, it's very straightforward. You bring like a laptop or whatever the tethering computer is, and then all the gear that goes with it. Because, you know, you can't just bring a laptop. You have to bring like, you know, I mean, my setup is just like a tripod with a laptop tray and a hood, and I can charge $300 for that. And that was paid off like a long time ago, you know? And like,
right. So you have some kind of capture station. So for you, it's a pretty simple capture station, right? You mentioned tripod, laptop, shelf with like a hood. Maybe you have some extra cables for like any type of like import, whether it's HDMI or, you know, this coaxial used to be the popular one, or like C cables, like extension cords, things like that.
You have to charge for all that because those are necessary components, even though like, maybe you might feel weird charging for it because you're like, oh, I already paid for that, or it was only a $60 dongle and I'm charging for it. But you're like, yeah, but without that dongle, the shoot's not happening.
Yeah.
So like whatever it is. And I've worked with photographers who like will pay me for my equipment fee, and then they like they're like, oh, but what equipment should I have? I'm like, oh, this is what you should buy. And then all of a sudden I get cut out from that equipment fee. And this is one thing with like photographers, like if you want a good way to get like the same crew coming back to you that you like is to have them buy the equipment and you rent it from them. Because plenty of photographers have trouble keeping crew like consistently, you know, and they're always like being like, oh, I can't find an assistant. And it's like, well, because either you're hard to work with, but a lot of them aren't hard to work with. It's just more like a money thing. It's like you're not paying them enough. And like, because they're getting paid somewhere else. And so like one way to get around that is like when you pay them for their equipment. And that's not something that should be coming out of your pocket. That should be coming out of like client, like that line item on the invoice.
Right. So, not coming out of the photographer's client, but this is where like you need to be charging your client for that equipment usage.
Yeah.
And I think this is a really important point where we were talking about rates, right? So you and I have been doing this for a long time, and we have seen either rates hit a ceiling, and in a lot of cases start to fall.
Yeah, I would say teching is in that place right now, where like it used to be like $800 or $900 a day plus equipment fees, and it's like going backwards. Like recently, someone hit me up about a teching job where they were out of town, and I'm in New York now, and they needed someone. It was like a corporate portraiture, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And my estimate was 1650, which would have been 750 for me, 750 for my laptop and tether kit, and 150 for equipment like delivery. Because in New York, you just have to charge equipment like a transportation fee.
Okay.
Because if you don't have equipment, you just take the subway. But if you do have equipment, you have to drive, and that just means tolls. That means parking. That means like so like a 150, 100, 150 is pretty typical. Like Milk or one of the studios, they'll charge 150 each way, right? So it's like a lot of times people will balk at that, and then you're like, well, go get a quote from this rental
Somewhere
studio,
else.
and it's
Yeah.
gonna be way more. I mean, sometimes depending on the job, it could be like 300 each way, for equipment delivery and drop off. Um, but anyway, the photographer came back to me and said I was the highest one. And I thought for a New York market, I was like right in the middle. I thought I was under charging at that rate for what the job was. And he said I was like way higher. And so in my mind, I'm like, if I was a photographer, if I was him, that would be all those other low rates would be a red flag. It would be like people are inexperienced. And that to me means it's kind of like a risk. You're working with like an inexperienced tech. But it also could be like the industry's been super slow, and maybe these techs are super experienced and they're just desperate for the work, and like they throw out some numbers and they need the job. And so you kind of don't really know why
Right.
people are bidding low. But in general, like if you bid too low, you might miss out on jobs too, because then people are like, "Oh, you don't know,"
Yeah, that's
And
a pretty common thing I hear in the commercial space, right? Whether you're the photographer or the assistant
yeah,
or any of the crew line items, right?
yeah,
Where, if you put in a bid, and I mean, I can two examples pop right into my mind of a time where like I put in a bid and they've come back and they're like, so have you thought about this? And you're
right,
like, am I the lowest bid? Like I thought I bid pretty,
yeah.
competitively. And they're
Oh,
like,
yeah,
they basically want me to like up it by, whatever it is, could be like $2,000 to $5,000 just to be a little bit more in level. Or the reverse has happened where they're like, you're like 7 to 10 over. Is there, what can you come down maybe, a little bit to be competitive to these other two bids?
yeah. Definitely, when you're giving people rates, you want them to ask you to come down. That's the goal. You will miss out on jobs like that because of that sometimes, where people just they won't ask you to come down. They'll just like not get back to you or whatever. But at the same time, it's like, is that a job you want to be a part of? Like
Right.
people are like throwing these super low rates at you. It's a red flag as well for you. Like, do you want to work with this client? Are they going to pay you on time? Are they ever going to pay you? Um, like these are real concerns, whether you're the photographer or the assistant or crew. One issue with teching now is that Capture One Pro Studio costs double what the regular Capture One costs, and a lot of clients want those features. Not everyone needs those features. Like I personally don't have that version yet because my clients don't need those features. Because I've kind of left the studio world and gone more into like architecture, my
Like
own
on
personal,
location more.
yeah, on location. So it's like architecture, gardens, interiors, drone work is kind of what I'm shooting. So you're not having like the jobs aren't big enough to have a ton of monitors and stuff where you're like benefiting from the Capture One studio features. But for the techs who are doing that, and like you need to make sure your rate reflects that price in the
Yeah.
software.
That you're
Uh,
passing on that cost.
yeah, that you're passing on that cost. I mean, some people just put a line item in that, like, like a Studio Pro line item, like a low, other people How do other people do it? I mean, other people charge. I mean, some techs will charge for every little line item, like tether cables, everything. I mean, you should have some. Your equipment should cover tether cables in some way or another, whether you mention it, just because they have to be replaced. They don't necessarily
Right.
last long. Um, or like monitors. Like a monitor isn't that expensive, but a travel case for a monitor is very expensive. So like just so it's like the whole. I mean, the monitor thing has changed
Yeah.
because ASOs aren't as useful as they used to be because now everyone's looking on their phones, and so it's like really you want a monitor that matches the viewer's phone. So like if you're shooting for a brand that's like most of their customers are on iPhones, then it's probably better to have an Apple monitor or have like
Yeah.
an LG monitor that mimics an Apple monitor.
But I think to your point,
Like that.
it's
But
important to have like kind of a almost like a back end equipment log as a tech to know like, okay, here's all the equipment that I own. Here's how much it cost me to replace it.
yeah,
And then you can come up with like, what is your capture station fee, right? So maybe you don't need to line item every little cable and dongle and hard drive.
yeah. I don't do it that way. Some techs do, but I do like a kit fee, and
Yeah.
then it goes up and down depending on what I have to bring or whatnot. Or like a
What's
drone.
needed.
I'm a little more aggressive with my drone pricing because it's like you kind of have like I'm not gonna fly someone else's drone. Like that's not gonna happen. Like I'm bringing my own, and if you don't want to pay for it, then that's fine. I won't.
Then I'm not flying.
I'm not flying. Like that's fine. I'll take another job, and like I charge drone insurance fee as well because the insurance is super expensive. Um, so that's another thing. Or all the softwares like when I do like video projects, I charge a line item for like I don't use Frame.io. I use Pibox, like Pibox, which I'd encourage people to check out as an alternative to Frame. It's really great. But like I charge a line item for that because it's like
Right. If you weren't doing this work, you wouldn't be paying for it.
you want
Yeah.
paying for it. It's also and like it saves you time, but it saves the client time. Like it saves them so much time. Like you want to just be sending Dropbox links back and forth or
No.
doing it all through email.
For anybody that knows me out there, they know how much, and I'm going to curse here. So if you don't like cursing, just hit 10 seconds forward. I fucking hate Dropbox. They will not be a sponsor of this show ever because I fucking hate that software. I just don't understand people. Like, I remember people sending me Dropbox stuff. I would go to open it and it would say like, you need to sync this to your Dropbox. And I'm like,
yes.
I don't have a Dropbox account. I should just be able to get into your Dropbox and download links. Yes. And then I'd have to go back to the person and tell them like, hey, can you change the settings so that I can
do something else? Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, why is this so hard for people? People are like, oh, I gave you permission. Sorry, I'll get off my soapbox, but like just Dropbox. Terrible.
I can't counterpoint to that because Dropbox now has like a WeTransfer feature, and it
That's
works.
Not WeTransfer. It's just like WeTransfer.
Well, it's like you're not sending someone something they can open. You're sending something that they download. So it's
right. Like Hightail.
Yeah, like Hightail. Yeah, exactly. But the reason I like it, whether using Hightail or WeTransfer or whatever, I mean, I think WeTransfer they raise the prices a lot, and that's not worth it. But other ones, Hightail's another one. The reason I like that is you're forcing people to download it. Because what happens a lot when you send people like a library is they just look at it and they don't actually download it.
Right. And then it goes away. And then they're like, well, where did that thing go?
Yes. Yeah. And 6 months later, they're like, where? And you're like, it's in the contract. You had to download it. Like, yeah, I still have it, but I have it not like, I don't have it contractually. Like, I just have it because I keep all my stuff, but like contractually I could tell you to get lost. So it's a weird, I don't know. That stuff is delivery is like a whole thing.
I was like, we could get into the weeds on that. It's one of the reasons. I mean, it used to be You Send It back in the day. Now it's Hightail, and I've stuck with Hightail over the years. One, for that exact reason where people will download it. I also get like, they were one of the first people to do like the instant receipt. So you could see who was downloading it. You can request that you get the email of the person who's downloading it and all that jazz. But yeah. And then WeTransfer came along and then they screwed everybody over was it already 2 years ago when they changed to capture everybody's creative rights.
I mean that, and then they just like jacked the prices up, but didn't change the service.
Right? And so a lot of people fled.
Yeah. I mean, there's a million ways to deliver stuff. I think you can actually deliver stuff through Capture One live now.
Oh, that's interesting.
You can use it for reviewing at least. You know, you can send someone a link and they can like pick their favorites and they can do like 1 to 5 stars or they can get colors or whatever. That is, I am a big proponent of Capture One. Like, if you're a professional photographer, get rid of Lightroom, use Capture One. Like, I know.
Well, the tethering capabilities in Capture far outweigh any other software that's out there.
Yeah, even if you don't tether, like, it's just the way the raw processing and the color tools work is just like Lightroom. It's just, I mean, I stay away from Adobe. I think it's like spam, like virusware. I keep it off my computers. It's just Creative Cloud. I will not put Creative Cloud on my computer.
Well, something that's interesting, since we're talking about this, this is early November 2025. For those that went to Adobe Max or just saw the Canva announcement. So Canva World just happened, and Canva and at Canva Affinity, which is like a competitor to the Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign world, announced that it is free forever. So you can literally download their Photoshop version. Well, you could download their Photoshop version. What is used to it was called Pixel. So they had Pixel, then they had Vector, and they had Publisher, which was their 3 programs. And I've used Publisher. It used to be a 180-day free trial. Now it's free forever. But all 3 now are one program. And you can flip between the 3.
Exciting. I haven't tried it out. I downloaded it. I haven't tried it out yet.
Yeah, I mean, this is like brand new, right?
Brand new, yeah. I am an Affinity software fan. I think their stuff is really good. It's like what Photoshop and Adobe should have done in the past 10 years, which is just like refresh everything. Like, the reason Photoshop feels so slow on modern computers is because there's coding in there from the 90s. I believe there's even some coding from 89 from the first version.
Yeah, from the original Photoshop.
Yeah, so it's like, this is something Adobe should have done, and I understand why they were hesitant to, whatever, but they should have. And this new version of Affinity puts all of Affinity programs, so Photo, Publisher,
Vector, Pixel, Publisher,
into one program. So theoretically, it could be a big game changer. The early reviews,
it's pretty cool.
Promising. Have you played with it yet?
Well, I mean, I played with Publisher this time last year. I made a zine using it instead of InDesign. And there's definitely a learning curve. It's a new piece of software to me. I don't know where things are, but like the tutorials online were really easy to follow. Yeah. Like once I was like, oh, that's what they call that tool. Okay, now I know where it is and I know how it works.
Everything has a different name, but it's the same.
And I think that's like going from, when I was shooting more consumer work and I was shooting families and kids and even like corporate events, I was using Lightroom as my main like culling, right? Like that was my gallery, that was my culling. But then when I went to shooting more commercial work and I went to Capture One, like there's a whole learning curve with Capture. So, and I'm still learning in Capture. I mean, Capture is a very robust program. Massive. There's a lot there. Yeah. But it's like there's certain things about Capture that I really love, but then it's like, when you know Adobe so well because it's been in your world for so long, you do find that you lean on it like a crutch where you're like, okay, I'm not going to figure this out in Capture right now because I know how to do that in Adobe. Yeah.
I mean, over the years, I've learned like I try not to break people's workflows when I'm giving, because I've done a lot of like workflow consulting, whether for studios or photographers, whatever. And like you want to like make it better with the software they already have. But I do think Capture One is kind of like, it's the industry standard for a reason. It is annoying to switch from Lightroom or whatever you're using to Capture One. But it's worth the money, and it does everything better. Once you learn how to use it, you won't switch.
Well, and I will say that
there isn't really a competitor to Capture One. Like they're all alternatives, but there's not a competitor.
Have you seen in the last, well, I'll say 3 to 5 years with Capture specifically, the crazy advancements within that program?
Yeah, I mean,
kind of like insane.
All the new AI, it's not really AI, machine learning, applied statistics, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, those new updates are like wild. I'm excited for the new update. I'm waiting for the next version until they work out the bugs, but they'll have a new one in a couple of weeks, I'm sure. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's just like the ability to do that masking. I actually had one personal project that I got
Yeah.
stuck on because I was masking so many. It was like a sequence where it was like she was running, and I wanted to do like 60 of her and turn it into a GIF, and I just got like stuck on masking her because I was like hand masking every time. And this I shot it like even photo. I shot it in like I guess I shot it. When did I shoot it? I don't know, like 5 years. It was like pre Photoshop. There was like no AI masking at all. And then
Oh, so we're talking at least like 8, 9 years ago.
yeah, and then like when it came out, I guess I shot it in like 2019 because it was going to be for the 2020 Olympics, which then got pushed back to 2021. It was a Paralympian, um, is who I was shooting, and I was like masking everything by hand, and it just didn't like work. I was able to deliver like other photos that worked great, but there was just this one GIF that I wanted to be a certain way. And then like as soon as the new AI masking came out from Capture One, I like did it, and it only took like a couple days instead of like
A month and a
months.
half.
Yeah, ever crazy. I mean, all the stuff we're talking about is going back to the Photo Glossary is why I started the Photo Glossary. It's just there's all this information out floating around the internet that kind of just needs to be like brought together. And that's kind of the idea. Like right now, the Photo Glossary is a literal glossary. It's over 500 words that you'll hear on a professional photo set. Obviously, this is like American centric. And the slang change. One of the fun things is how slang changes. Like if you're in LA and New York, the slang is different. Chicago slang's a little different. So I include slang that might be repetitive, but you'll hear a different term in New York or in LA. And it would be fun to do it in other languages or in other, like I think some of the terms would cross over to London and other English speaking
Yeah.
markets in Europe.
I will say the only thing that I heard here that I didn't know, like I had zero idea what it was recce.
Yeah,
I
what's
had
that?
no idea what a recce was.
A new word I gotta add.
So recce can mean it's like a tech scout is what it is.
Sure.
It's RECCE, recce. And
Becky.
because I bid a job here, and
Like
I brought on this, yeah, like a oh my God. Yes, what you said.
Reconnaissance.
It's like
Yeah.
recon.
Recon.
Yeah.
There we go.
And it was just really funny. And we were going through the budget, and I asked the producer, I was like, okay, so I know what all of these line items is, but what is this? And she's like, the recce? And I'm like, yeah, is it like like I was guessing, like, is it recreation?
Yeah.
Is it is it like some kind of like RV thing? And she's like, no, Shelly. She's like, it's a recce. I mean, and then the other producer that was on there, he's like, no, you would call it a tech scout in the States. And I was like, oh,
yeah,
I know what that is.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
mean, I think everything else was pretty common.
the way the slang changes is fun. And that's kind of one thing I've been enjoyed about doing it. So yeah, it's like 500 words you'll hear on set, words that you won't learn in, I don't know, photo school or whatever. You like won't learn in a classroom. Like you'll have to learn them like in the real world. But it is kind of nice. Honestly, it was also built too for like anyone who works on set. So like if you're a stylist or hair and makeup or I don't know, or you're coming from the film world or whatever, like it's terms you'll be able to like recognize as well. Because you see that sometimes where like people in other crew roles, you'll like the assistant or someone will say something and it just gets lost in translation because you're like in different roles and you have different slang and stuff. So you're trying to kind of like cross those bridges.
Is there any particular word that jumps out where you were like, oh yeah, this means one thing in LA, or this doesn't translate in New York?
What's a good one? I don't know if this one's on. I don't think this one's on it, but Coleman in LA, there was like a time when Coleman was a term for a short C stand because of Gary Coleman, the actor.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah, that was like a thing. I have not. heard it in like forever. That one's not on the list, but it was like a very specific
Yeah. That's a
thing.
very LA thing. Yeah.
LA thing.
I'm like, I've heard them called shorties.
Yeah, shorty is what's another one, or just like what's like a good one between New York and LA. I mean, one big thing between New York and LA is like everything in LA, or most of your work in LA will be location based, whereas in New York most of it is studio based, and that because of that, there's like different slang and different, or like just yeah, different people are talking about. It's like the equipment is different because you need equipment that can go into a house or a building,
Right.
as opposed to just like in a studio. Um,
Like things tend to be a little bit more compact or compatible.
yeah, or like in LA, there's a lot of like grips who like own a van or a truck full of equipment. Like that's
Yep.
very
The one
common.
ton.
Yeah, the one time. Whereas in New York, it's like really hard to find, and I will say that's a hole in the market if anyone's listening.
There you
Yeah,
go.
but I at the same time, it's like the way the industry is right now. It's like it's hard to encourage people to make big capital expenditures. Um, so like yeah, it's maybe don't buy the expensive lights. Just buy some like grip or whatever. Throw it in your SUV. Uh,
Put it in
make
your
it
Prius.
yeah, put it in your Prius. Whatever, yeah, whatever it is. I mean, I think there's just so like because when I was starting, it was switching from film to digital in both like photo and video worlds. And so because of that, there was like this whole generation of like people who started after me, just like a year or two after me, who didn't like learn anything about the film side of things. And now film's making a comeback, and now you kind of have this like lost like 10-year knowledge where there's like
Mm.
people who were professionals for the past 10 years and now they're like rediscovering film and wanting to shoot with it, but it's like getting harder to like learn that stuff because the people who are experts have retired or have like moved on or whatever, for whatever reason they're like not on set anymore to like give you that experience. And I think the same thing is happening now too, where you're like we're kind of in like digital part two. If like from like 2010 to 2020 was like digital part one, or digital, I guess that would be digital part two, and now we're in digital part three. So now there's like a whole new generation of people who are like learning from YouTube and learning from all these various sources and just like figuring it out on their own, which is really incredible. But at the same time, they're just missing out. Like so many productions are like, and so many photographers and so many assistants and whatever, they're reinventing the wheel. You're like, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. There's industry standards that exist for a reason, especially with young producers. Like the young producers, they're not even producers anymore. They're just project managers who have been like thrown into this role and don't get any support. Like they get zero support and they have to figure it all out. And they're trying their best, but they're just like like they don't know that there's like all these ways to do things that would make their life a million times easier.
Or the questions to ask.
Yeah, the questions to ask, or like I had a job last year. I don't know, it was in the spring or something. I was working with someone at an agency who should have known that, but they were like, maybe they were playing coy, I don't know, but they were trying to get out of paying a delivery fee in Manhattan for a lot of equipment. It wasn't like a one piece of equipment. It was like video lights and all this stuff. And they were like, oh, we have to like pay that fee. And I was like, this is Manhattan.
You're like, yeah, how do you think it's going to get delivered?
You have to pay a fee for anything to get delivered. Like, it's just, and we're moving. Like,
you're like, even if you ordered a hamburger, you're going to pay the delivery fee.
You're going to pay a fee. Like, you think you don't have to pay a fee? Or it was just, it's just stuff like that. Or knowing which, like the difference between a video rental house and a photo rental house. Like, yeah, they might have the same equipment, but they're catering to different people. Therefore, they have different services. Like a video rental house closes at 5. They're not like the same job. Like they had to like pay the rental house to stay open late because they didn't. Because like video rental houses expect you to have a prep day and expect you to have a wrap day where you can pick up and deliver during 9 to 5 hours or 8 to 6, whatever. Mm-hmm. Whereas like a photo house, like Milk or someone, Milk is open 24 hours because they know that photo productions don't have those days. So they're expecting you to pick up at dawn and they're expecting you to return it at Lord knows when, like super late. But they know that and they're comfortable with it. Whereas like a video house, they're like, wait, you need to return at 9 p.m.? Like, what are you talking about? Like, why can't you do it the next day? Like, they don't get that, like, the limitations of photo productions.
But
Which is
again,
another, yeah,
this is like why you have what you know, put together. And part of it is like that, like you said, it's the lost knowledge. So, you know, like if you didn't come up through someone else, right? Like if you weren't assisting someone else in that role and then gleaming this knowledge from them, just like listening and being on set and working in these different roles, like you wouldn't know that you're going to pay to drop off the next day at the video house versus, yeah, you could drop off at 3 a.m. at Milk.
right. Yeah. Or, yeah, that kind of stuff. Or like, I mean, when you do work with an older assistant, whether you're a photographer, whatever your role is, if there's like an OG on set, like pepper them with questions because the amount of knowledge they have is insane. The amount of things they've seen, like they saw it go from like film to digital to like bad digital to now like good digital that we have now, and like they like have this knowledge that can't really be recreated now because no one is starting where they started.
Well, I would see the next thing that they've probably seen is all this hybrid shooting, right? Where there's like dual video and stills happening at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. And that's big now. Everyone wants that. And that's like,
right. And that's a whole different way to manage a set and manage people. And if you're the lighting director or the light tech or even the first assistant, and you have to do it for both, or even talk to the video people if you're on the photographer's side or vice versa, like there's a whole set of like information and communication that has to blend seamlessly, or it's going to be really difficult to get through that shoot.
Yeah. I mean, I think there is just so much. I mean, same thing too. Like if you have an older producer on set, they're another one who just has an insane amount of knowledge. Like older producers are just like worth their weight in gold. Like they know so much. And it can be really tough when sometimes you're trying to get a really experienced producer and then you end up with one who isn't, and you're just like, now you're just like producing your own shoot because you're just like, you know, you're like helping the junior producer do everything, but they don't have a junior producer title anymore. Now it's just producer, which is kind of like a weird thing. Whereas it used to be like they were a junior producer and they reported to a senior
or an assistant producer.
Yeah, assistant producer, and they were like learning, and they were, you know, I mean, that's still a good way to get started if you can. I mean, when I started, you went to photographers and basically begged to be an assistant or an intern or whatever. Now it's kind of like the business model's changed. So photographers, like you're not getting packing days, you're not getting wrapping days. So like photographers can't really keep assistants on staff anymore. So like the few photographers who do have a staff, they're more like video editors or producers or
social media content people.
Definitely social media, right? It's like something like that. Whereas like, so now it's like if you're starting out and you want to be on set, I would try to find production companies, like hit them up and start like interning or assisting, like, you know, in the lower rungs with them. And then I mean, you can hit up photographers. I mean, one thing that has changed that's amazing is like everyone talks about gatekeeping and all this stuff, and like how the gatekeeping is like gone away is pretty wild. I think that kind of went away with the end of film being so common. But like if there's a photographer you follow and they post some photo you really like, you can just straight up hit them up in the comments or like DM them and be like, I love this photo. How did you do it? What are these techniques? And you'll definitely get people who will, you know, tell you to buzz off or whatever, or won't respond. But 9 times out of 10, they're photographers. They love this stuff. They want to talk.
They want to talk about it
right now. Like they want to talk about this stuff, and like they'll be happy to explain it. It doesn't mean you'll understand what they're talking about. You'll be able to recreate the technique. Like the photographers who are really, really good, or like lighting directors who are really good, or techs, or whatever, like they can give you step-by-step instructions and you still won't be able to do it.
Right.
Like it's just, they're at these levels that are like I've realized that too. Once you hit a certain point of experience, I can tell someone like follow these like dozen steps or follow these 100 steps, whatever it is. You're still not going to end up with the same photo I took. Like it's like part of that is your personal creative journey. Like you have to do your personal creative journey to find your voice, and like the difference with different artists, it takes somewhere like it took me longer to find my personal voice than it did some other people, and some other people are still finding it, even though they're like older than me or whatever. And but that is a big part of it too, where like I could give you all the technical steps that I use, but at the end of the day, like you're not gonna be able to recreate those technicals. Like you're not gonna get the same result as me, because
Right.
we have a different eye, we have a different creative vision, we have different creative history, like understanding the world, and like,
We just see
man,
things differently too.
you see things differently. I mean, another thing with like just being a creative or an artist or anything, it's all about your influence from everywhere. Like it's not about like, oh, I follow all these photographers on Instagram and like I'm learning from them. It's like go to museums, read books, like take as many art history courses as you can. If you can't do that, just go on YouTube and watch like all the art history like seminars and stuff. Like it's
But it's also
especially,
just like being part of the world, right? It's
yeah,
also just the way that you live, the cadence you live, the places you go.
yeah,
If you're in a walking city like New York or London or even Chicago, right, your intake of the outside world is going to be very different than, but like when you were in Colorado and you're surrounded by like these gorgeous peaks and tons of nature,
yeah,
versus like in LA, you're driving everywhere, right? So
right,
your the cultural influences that you have on an everyday basis is going to be very different, and form a very different perspective that you bring to the table. And it's interesting that you brought this up, because it's a conversation I had recently with a friend of mine, also an amazing food photographer. And we were talking about, she's been doing these little video tutorials on YouTube of her lighting, right? Because she's really experienced playing around with some new lighting ideas that were inspired by a portrait photographer she follows. And so she's like, I want to take like traditional portrait lighting, but apply it to food.
right.
And she's like, and you don't see this done a lot. And like, how is it going to reference? And it's exactly what you're saying, is like, she could take portrait lighting, which is gorgeous portrait lighting, right? But it's going to read so differently on
Yes,
the subject she's photographing, because it's food or a drink.
yeah,
And even though I've watched that video at least a dozen times, I cannot replicate it.
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, I don't have exactly the same type of lights that she has, right? She's shooting her pro photo lights. I'm shooting my Adorama lights, but it's like, they're the same wattage, they're the same power. I have the same modifier. They're in the same spot. It's the different photo.
it's just different. I mean, it's like, yeah, I've been shooting and assisting and teching basically like concurrently, like the whole time. So it's like professionally, it's been like almost 18 years or something like that. And like the
Mm-hmm.
way you can see, like I work with like a ton of different photographers, and just like how like you can literally have the same equipment and have a different photographer, and they'll make the slightest tweak and it will change everything. And it just gets down to being so, I mean, it's like any art, any craft, it really comes down to like details on details on details. Like once you get good at lighting, you're seeing lighting in a tenth of a stop, which is like pretty insane, and it takes you a long time to get there. But there's a certain point where you start reading it, like, because like the old pack, like all the packs now, power packs now are tenths of a stop, but back in the day they were thirds or quarters or halves or whatever. And like I would be on set with these photographers, and they'd be like making the smallest tweaks and trying to, and being like telling me to do it, and I like couldn't keep up. I couldn't get what they were trying to get. But then you get you go a few years deeper into experience and your skills level, and then eventually you can kind of like see, and you're like, oh, this is like why that guy was yelling at me 5 years ago. Because he could see the 1/10 of a light, but I could only see a third,
Yes,
or I
a
could only
third.
see a
Right.
half. And that, just that small difference makes a huge amount to the final photo. And then color temperature is like a whole nother thing. Like Um, like you're like the way like eventually you'll be able to see the different color temperature in like shadow versus like where the light
Highlights.
is. Yeah,
Yeah.
versus yeah, or just like walking. I think one thing with lighting that's like super helpful is like just do walks, whether you're with your camera or not, is like everywhere you go is like the lighting you're trying to recreate with artificial lighting. So it's like if you are just walking around or you're in a space, indoor, outdoor, wherever, where you like the light, just like take a moment, look around, and just like try to figure out what is creating that light. Like, is there a hair light? Like, where's the hair light coming from? Is it the sunlight, or is there like, artificial light above the person? Or like in New York City or big cities, you get lots of like reflections off glass, which always creates like really incredible light. Like the sunlight is bouncing off the glass in a particular way.
Yeah.
And then, if you as you like kind of absorb where like what's happening, um you can use that knowledge to recreate it. Like I find recreating light works best when you talk about like specific moments in time. Like, do you want to recreate morning light? Do you want to create like dawn and dusk have different lighting characteristics? And like, are you recreating 6 a.m. at sunrise, or are you creating 6 p.m.? Even though one is sunrise and one is sunset, the light is actually very different.
Yeah.
Like the color quality is different. The time of the year is different, because like if you're in the spring and there's a lot of trees around, color temperature is going to be super green, right? Because it's like all bouncing off the screen. Whereas if you're in the fall and you're in the same spot, those trees are now turning red and all brown and everything. Now the color temperature is different because it's bouncing off of that. So it's like there's kind of like a million ways to see it, and there's a million ways to learn it. But for me, I always think where you're trying to recreate. That's how I do it, and I think that's a good way to describe it to people. Is like we're creating light at 2 p.m. on a sunny afternoon, no clouds in the sky, and we want the shadow to be here. And that's kind of like eventually everyone can kind of like follow along with that. Whereas opposed to just being like, here's a mood board, or here's this, or here's that. It helps to
Well, I
get
think it's about painting that picture, right? Putting the details in the picture, putting the fine details in there. And I mean, if you start with a mood board, but then you have the description that goes with the mood board, then it gets even clearer, right? Because the mood board could be like, this is the feeling,
right.
This is the emotion we want to show, this is the colors we're going to have in our photos, this is the poses we're going to have the people do, this is how we're going to integrate the product, but like in non-product forward ways. And then you're going to say, and then for the lighting style,
yeah. It's like
right, we're going to have 2 p.m. on a spring day, clear sky. Right. It's going to feel like crisp, slightly blue light.
Right. Exactly. I mean, at a certain point, you'll be able to recreate any kind of light, and then you'll also realize that certain kinds of light is super expensive to recreate. Like a cloudy day is very expensive to recreate. A sunny,
just
sunny
come to London, I gotta say.
Yeah, right. It's way easier.
But go to San Francisco and shoot on the coast, or come to London.
But I've been on sets where people are like, "Oh, we like have to have like one of the references is like a super cloudy day, probably in Ireland or like somewhere in the UK."
Yeah.
And it just creates that gorgeous like overcast, but there's like a ton of like shadows and whatever. And you're like, you can't, or not shadows. It's more like darkness, because it's like the clouds are that heavy.
Yeah,
that you're getting.
Clouds
are
like heavy.
Overcast and nice, but then there's shit like darkness coming from the ground because it's dark outside. And it's like, yeah, we can do that, but you need to put a 20 by overhead and probably want maybe 3 silks, because it has to be super, super soft, because you're like imitating the cloud.
Because they want that round light.
Yeah, and then you have to like, so yeah, you can do that, but it's really expensive because you need.
You're like, and you're not shooting the ground, right? Because we're gonna black that out.
Right, exactly. You have to black on the ground. Yeah, I mean, there's just whereas like sunlight, the hard sunlight is actually pretty easy to recreate, and like, I don't know. This is why I love photography. Yeah. You just get into the weeds and like everything, like. The way you sell sunlight in photography isn't just by like throwing up a bare bulb. It's like by creating atmosphere and shadows and stuff, either on the subject or behind the subject or whatever. That's how you trick the eye. And it's the same thing with like film. And I mean, film is like a great place to learn. And I mean, yeah, the wiki side of the Photo Glossary is kind of just, it's less about like lessons and more about like, here's a great resource where someone already did this, so I'm not going to recreate their how-to tutorial because they did it better than I can, but here's a link to it. And it's just kind of like bringing all this knowledge to like one place. I'm also trying to like get a lot on what we've been talking about, like communication and that kind of thing, trying to put a lot of that on, because that is one thing that's missing from the internet. There isn't a lot about like communication on set, or the soft skills. Like everyone's like, there's a million amazing YouTube tutorials about how to do like lighting or whatever, but I can't think of anyone where someone's like, these are the soft skills you need to like
talk to your assistants,
or like whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, some people do talk about it. Like I listened to like Jake Stengel was on a podcast recently, and he was talking about how he's like the vibe, like he's chief of vibes or something. And that is like a thing where you're like trying to create like a mood for your set that matches the photos that you want to get.
Yeah.
And film is the same way, and like all this stuff. Yeah.
I mean, that was like why I put a BTS video of me photographing kids on my site.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times when I would meet with art directors and stuff, I'm like, if you want to get a sense of how I work with kids on set, go watch this video. Like it's a whole BTS of me working with these kids. And like, you're going to see like, I have a lot of fun and I let them have a lot of fun. And I want them to feel like they have autonomy on set and that they get to make some decisions too. And that's how I like to work. And that's how I get them to trust me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're like, oh, cool. You know? And I think that's also like something that, especially like kids is a really great example, but whether you're working with adults or still life or pets, it's like, if you can show people like, this is the environment I'm creating on set. Like, I think that's why BTS is behind the scenes, right? It could be so powerful for you to sell how you function and what it's like on set. Cause I'm a very loud person. I like to have a lot of fun. I like pop music on my sets. Like I like that upbeat energy, but I know some photographers that are like, I like it way more mellow. Like they listen to like a lot more, I don't want to say like quiet music, but it's like way more mellow music. They like it to be a little bit more contemplative. And they don't mind bringing the energy themselves, but like the overall mood is kind of this very mellow, like band. And then it's like, they will bring the peaks on top of that.
Sure. Yeah.
And so like when I shoot with this photographer quite often. We'll do a lot of collabs together. And I'm always like, oh my God, can we change the radio station? Like I'm starting to fall asleep. Like I love this. And this has been great for 2 hours, but like, we need to like, can we just amp it up just like a little bit? Like we don't have to go full Dua Lipa, but like, can we move in that direction?
Somewhere in the middle. Yes. Yeah. I know the feeling, but it is fun to get into that too, where you're like, oh, I'm shooting a portrait that's like really thoughtful, and maybe it's for like an intense story or something, and so you're like trying to create that vibe with chill music versus like I'm on a fashion shoot and I want everyone to just be like having a good time. Or kids is another great example where you're like, not obviously not always, but most kids shoot, you just want the energy to be high, so like whatever it takes,
you want them to be having a good time.
I mean
lots of juice boxes.
Lots of juice boxes. Get that Wrangler going. I mean, I think kids is a perfect example too of like how every genre has its own like tips and tricks. And like I like saying like a lot of fashion photographers struggle with kids, even though you're shooting fashion on those, they're wearing clothes or whatever, but they struggle because it's just such a different like energy change. It's just such a different, and just kind of the way you direct adult models, you can't direct kid models the same way. You have to direct them a very different way.
They don't sit still very long.
They don't sit still. Like communication has to go through one person. You can't have, I mean, in general, I would say with any time you're communicating on set, like even if it's adults, like communication should go through one person. It just gets, I've been on too many shoots where the photographer and the art director and the client are all like barking at the model, and the model's just like,
I don't know what you want me to do. I'm getting 4 different directions. Yeah.
Well, it's like really clear. Like they kind of shut down.
I mean, I just watched a behind the scenes video. Grace Chone, I don't know if you follow her. She's an amazing dog photographer. And she has her new book is out. And so she's been sharing a lot of behind the scenes of like shooting with the dogs and how working with the wranglers and the trainers and the owners and like who's actually like calling the dog.
Mm-hmm.
To your point, like you can only have one person calling the animal because you can't have four people, or else the dog's like, what? Huh?
Yeah.
You know?
Nothing.
And you may not want that. You may want them looking at the camera.
Right. Yeah, there's so many. It is one thing too why people specialize. This is one thing that I personally struggle with, is kind of like trying to specialize. Because like when I first started, I specialized in snowboarding, and that just kind of like didn't work out for me for, you know, a million reasons. And then, but really one of the reasons I love photography is because of how broad it is, and you can never master it. Like, oh, you mastered fashion photography? Cool. Now how about architecture or underwater? Like, you can't master it all. And that's kind of one thing that makes it really fun. But from a business standpoint, you really need to just like, when it comes to your marketing, just like specialize for sure. Like if you're a digital tech and you assist, just say you're a digital tech. And then when people ask you if you assist, you're like, yeah, do both. I mean, as far as like crew roles and getting into that, I would say with like teching, there is a reason usually the tech is like older on set. And it's just like, there's a maturity level that you need to be able to handle the stress of that role. Like it's just, you're the hub, and like if the assistant does something wrong, it doesn't really matter. You can redo the shot. Like right, if the light is set wrong, you can move it and redo it. If the tech does something wrong, like you're done. Like you're done. Shoot's over. You know. So it's just like a different. Like there's a reason you don't work with 25-year-old techs. Even if you're a tech, and if you're 25 and you've mastered Capture One, like don't feel bad if people are passing over you just for your age. Just because, like, I mean, obviously some people are, when they're young, they have that maturity level and they can do it. But a lot of people are going to be skeptical and probably not. And being like a good tech, you kind of just have to be battle tested, and it just takes a while to get there. And techs, honestly, the best techs start assisting or start shooting and then get into teching, because you really have to have a knowledge of like lighting, and you don't have to be an expert. We just have to have the basics. Like you need to understand.
What would you say is some of the like the baseline stuff? So like if someone did want to get into teching, what would you say would be like the place for them to go first? Like obviously they should learn Capture One.
Yeah, you gotta know Capture One. In the US, you gotta be on Apple. Like there are some people who do PC, but those are like they're doing it for themselves, or they're doing it in a studio. Like it's like contained. Like Apple's just the standard for like a million reasons. So you have to know Apple. You really just kind of have to be a computer nerd. Like, yeah, now computers are so much more reliable. You can get away with teching without being a computer nerd. But when something goes wrong, you want to be able to know how to fix it. You want to be able to know how to fix it quickly. I mean, one thing with modern computers that is nice is when things go wrong, you can fix it way faster than with old computers. Like old computers, something went wrong, you would lose like an hour or two, like waiting and
running the diagnostic.
Right, doing whatever. And now when you have a problem, it's like you restart Capture One. If that doesn't work, you restart the whole computer. And, you know, the new computers boot up so fast, like you really don't lose a lot of time. The big thing with text that I think a lot of them don't work on is like communication skills. Like you are the hub. Like everyone's going to come to you. Everyone's going to be bothering you. If you really like teching, but you don't want to deal with people, which is perfectly reasonable, I would recommend going more like the DIT route in film. Because if you're like doing DIT work, usually you're just by yourself. Like literally. Literally, you get a little tent and you stand in there and no one talks to you. There's a radio and they'll call you on the radio when like need you to do something. But in general, like you're kind of just by yourself. Whereas in photo, it's like you are the hub. Like you're the center. Like you're going to have to interface with the client, you're going to have to interface with the photographer, you have to interface with the stylist. I mean, a big job of the tech is like you're basically delivering data. Like you're making sure everyone has the data they need to make the creative decisions they want to make. So like that means they can see the monitor, like the monitors are working, which is always, monitors are crazy. They will always give you trouble. Um, but yeah, like you want the stylist to be able to see it. You want whoever the decision makers are, like the art director, the photographer, they need to be able to see the data so that they can make a decision. One thing with text is that some texts get a little too opinionated, which I really try to encourage the text to just not have an opinion. If you like the photo, great. If you don't like the photo, no one cares. Like, do not open your mouth with an opinion. No one is hiring you to have an opinion. People are hiring you to like preserve the ones and O's, and they're hiring you to make sure other people on set have the data so that they can make creative decisions. And if you're good at it, you should be able to charge a lot of money and make a lot of money for it. But your opinion, no.
That's not what they're paying for.
If someone asks you, you say you like it, but it doesn't matter. It's like the lighting director's opinion matters, or like the assistant's opinion might matter depending on the shoot and the relationship they have with the photographer. But the text like opinion, it's just like it's either it's clipped or it's like blown out or it's like the lighting changed. Like that happens all the time. Like the lighting, like something goes wrong with the light. Like someone bumps the light stand and now it's slightly different. But you know, the stylist isn't going to notice that. But you as a tech need to be able to notice that. So like baseline tech skills are like, yeah, you just kind of, it's good to know lighting. And it's also good to know limitations of lighting. Like if you don't have to know how to fix the lighting, but if something is like too dark or too light, it's like that's kind of like what people want to know. I've even worked with assistants who are like, I don't even want to know if it's like blown out, because they're like, because that's what I want it to look like. At the same time, I do push back on that, where I'm like, I'll like just turn the light down and I'll push it in Capture One, because there's no point. Like you don't need to blow.
There's no point to lose data.
There's no point to lose data anymore. You're not shooting film. You're like, there's no point. And some photographers don't really understand that too. So sometimes it's like educational. Just with being a tech, it's good to be like neutral in your language and like things. Because the other thing that will happen is I'll tell someone, it's like, oh, like this is a problem. And they'll be like, no, we want it like that. And that's where you're like, cool.
Right.
Like,
well, I think this gets back to your point of like why knowing the software is really important, right? So you don't need to clip your blacks and you don't need to clip your your highlights, because that data should remain there. And if you want to clip it, then it's a post decision,
right,
and not an in-camera decision.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that is great is Capture One certification process is now free. Like you can just do it through their website. You make an account and like I mean, I haven't personally done it, but you just go through all the videos and the steps. And I think there's some like quizzes. But back in the day, you had to pay a lot of money for it. Like I think I paid like $500 for it at one point, like 2012 or something. It included software, so it wasn't like a wash, but you had to pay for that class because it was in person. Like you couldn't do it online back then anymore. But now you can't do it online and get that certification. So if you're new, I would say that's a great place to start. Same thing. DaVinci, if you're doing like video editing, DaVinci. Blackmagic DaVinci has the same, also DaVinci Resolve. They have like a certification process you can just do online.
I actually didn't know about their certification process. I know about the software. I didn't know about the certification.
Yeah, they have one. Same way. I think Capture One is probably like mimicking that one. But yeah, that's a great place to go. Yeah, the real thing is like knowing you do need to be like a photo person to be a digital tech. You can't just be a computer nerd. It's not like enough. Like it's important to be able to like troubleshoot problems when they go wrong, like with the cameras and stuff. And one thing that is great is that like tethering is so much more reliable than it used to be, which I think is one thing that has hurt tech rates, because like newer photographers are like, why do I have to pay an expensive tech? The camera never breaks. Like the tethering never breaks unless it gets unplugged. And that's something that's a gift that we're all getting to enjoy. That's really only like 2 or 3 years old.
Yeah. Well,
back in the day, it was a nightmare. And like,
I think to one of your comments that you made earlier about like, shots that you can get in a day and kind of the limitations of that. And like, where we're bumping up against those like maximums. And when you mention like fashion, for instance, right? Like that you could probably get, say, like anywhere between 20 and maybe the max is maybe 40 like outfits in a day. But if you have a really good tech and you're doing, let's say you're doing a detail shot and a close up and a full length and a back, and you're taking maybe 5 or 6 shots of that outfit. So if you have a tech, then they can create the folder. They can put, this is outfit 2, and all those images go into outfit 2. And so you're not having to, as the photographer, if you're trying to do it all yourself, you're not having to be like, okay, at the end of the day, I need to move all these images into these folders and blah, 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 blah. Like it's all done for you.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, one thing I try to stress with the Photo Glossary stuff is like having knowledgeable crew on set. Doesn't mean they have to be like super old school or the best of the best or whatever. Just knowledgeable crew on set saves you money, and it just like boosts your productivity. Like if you're a photographer and you're used to working by yourself, when you switch to working with a crew, your productivity just goes like through the roof. Like you just get so much more done, and I mean, that's why you have crew, because of like, yes, can you tether to a computer and do all the lighting and everything by yourself? On some jobs you can, but you're not going to be hitting crazy numbers. You're not going to be able to like talk to the client about wardrobe and run ChronoSync at the same time. Like you're not, it's like you just, like our human brains can't do that, nor can our like physical, you can't be in like hanging out with hair and makeup and be in front of the computer at the same time. And I think a lot of people run into that, especially like kind of e-com studios where they're like lower budget. They're just like, oh, I have the computer next to me. I like tech while I shoot. And you can, I've done it. Everybody's done it, but it's not a good workflow. It creates problems. And when problems happen, you're less likely to catch it.
Right. Like you mentioned, like if you run into your own light stand.
Yeah. Which we've all done. Everyone's bumped the light stand and the light changes.
Or you bump the tripod, right? Yeah. And you're like, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
I'll fix it in post.
Yeah, exactly. But while you're shooting, you might not even notice that the light moved 2 inches. But the tech will notice and the assistant will notice. And and that's kind of what they're there for. They're there to like have your back. And I think, and back in the day, that was like a very clear thing. Like the crew had your back as the photographer, and in turn, you paid them really well. And yeah, maybe you were some crazy jerk who yelled at them, but you paid them really well, and you had their back. But now that's kind of like, I've seen plenty of photographers throw a crew under the bus with dealing with clients, and that's a good way to like, that person will never work with you again, and vice versa. And like, I mean, yeah, everybody, no one wants to be thrown under the bus on set, whether you're the photographer or, I mean, that's another thing with crew. Like if you piss off your crew, they're going to throw you under the bus. Right. Yeah. And like,
well, and the industry, I mean, the reality is like word gets around, oh, I worked with XYZ photographer and they were a real jerk on set. And especially to the, whatever, like to the women on set, they were really mean, or to the guys that were really mean, or they refused to get vegetarian meals and I'm a vegetarian, like it could be anything. So it's like, just, you want to just be conscious of, people are full humans and take into account like their full humanness.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, don't be a jerk.
Don't be a jerk. And like, you are just people who are really good at assisting and are really good at teching. It is a craft. It is a job. Like these people like know what they're doing. Like, especially if you're working with a tech or an assistant who stays really busy, like just pepper them with questions. They will be able to like, they have the knowledge because they worked with some other photographer who might not be a competitor to you, might be completely different, but they troubleshooted a similar problem for that photographer. And like, right. That is one thing that's interesting talking to techs. Like so many of them are like, I work 200 days a year and no one asked me anything. He's like, I have so much knowledge about, it's not like about creative knowledge, but it's just more like how to make your business better, how to make your on-set productions better or whatever. And you're like one thing that really drives me crazy is that people, I've noticed newer photographers don't know how to tether. Like they physically know how to tether. They connect the camera and it shows up on the screen, but they don't look at the fucking screen. Like you see this so often where it's like,
So then what's the point of tethering?
because they look at the screen eventually, but by the time they look at the screen, they've already shot 100 frames. And then like they shot too many frames to go through them all, and they get like frustrated, and they're just like, "Oh, we'll go back." Well, like, and you're like, "But you might have got the shot like 5 frames in, but you don't know because you're not looking at the fifth frame because you shot 150 and you've only made it to like 125 because you're like, oh, I'll look at it later." And it's just like if you want to tether, like test shots, test shots, test shots, test shots, like. Well, one thing on fashion shots that drives me nuts is like people will just like not shoot a test shot. Like you put the model on set, you take a test shot, you have everyone look at the model, stylist, hair and makeup, art director, and everyone agrees it's good. And then you start shooting. Where so many people just like the stylist will be like, she's ready. And then you just go, and then you start shooting. And then all of a sudden you just wasted like 50 frames. And then someone's like, oh, the bracelet is wrong. And you're like, well, if you just shot one test shot, had everyone look at it, they would have noticed the bracelet was wrong right away.
Yeah. The joys of when you grew up with film.
Yeah. And it's just like people, like there is like a method to tethering that for some reason people just don't, I don't know. Obviously some people do it and it works perfectly. But same thing with like, it's just like shoot. It's like you have to like shoot test frames and ingest what you're looking at basically. And then you can like do the shoot, like make sure the hair is right, make sure the makeup's right, make sure it's styled properly. Like the whole. I mean,
that's very true for food too, right?
Yeah, right.
And it's very much, we kind of joke a lot about when you're shooting food or you're shooting a table scene. It's like, oh, I'm going to put this item here, and then I take a shot, and then I'm going to add the next item and take a shot, and then I take the next thing and take a shot, and the shot and the shot, and then it's like literally when you play back, you have your own little stop motion.
Right.
Because you're watching the scene be built over time and you're like, oh, I don't like when we put this here. I don't like that this shadow crosses into this thing, or I don't like this. So let's rearrange that, or let's move that, or that color tone doesn't work. There is a lot of place, shoot, look.
Yeah.
Place, shoot, look.
Yeah.
And so when you do have multiple hands on set, right, and you do have like digi photographer, let's say food stylist or prop stylist at this point, like if you almost don't even have to say anything because like they could be like, the prop stylist will be like, yeah, that color combo doesn't work. Like, let me just swap this out before you even say anything. So that pause of look is really important.
Yeah, I think in genres like food or like still life, you don't really run into that because everyone is like, you shoot a frame, you look, you shoot a frame, you look. It's the like on figure stuff where people like aren't, or they'll look at the model while you're shooting and not look at the monitor while you're shooting. And it's just like, it's not like the model looks different on the screen. That's why they're a model. It's not because they look good in real life. It's because they look good on camera. Right.
I think the same goes for lifestyle, right? When you're shooting lifestyle and you want to make sure like proportionates look good. And I will admit, I have been that person where I get all excited. I see the scene. I just want to start shooting. You know, I'm 20, 30 frames in or whatever, you know, because like I'm shooting through the action or whatever it is. Right. And then I'm like, oh, yeah, you have the wrong shirt on.
Right. Everybody's done. Yeah, exactly. Or like shooting from a tripod is like a good tip, especially like with fashion or like obviously food, you're shooting product, you're shooting with a tripod. But I think a lot of like people shooters are hesitant to work like lifestyle commercial. It's great to shoot with a tripod because you shoot one and then it's like, oh, this like lamp in the background's a little weird, or this like, you know, like the little like flower pot is a little off, like let's fix that. Whereas if you're just shooting handheld, that stuff might get missed, and then later in post you're like, I wish that lamp was 3 inches to the left. But depending on,
we had a bigger plant,
or we had a different plant or a bigger plant or whatever. But it's like, it is easier if it's just like on, you like lock it down. That's a good tip too. Is like lock it down while you're testing, and then if you want to take it off the tripod and shoot, like go for it. But just like make sure everything in the frame, because these frames get so complicated. If you're shooting a living room and it's fully propped out and there's like 3 models of a family and a dog, like there's so much happening. There's so much to keep track of. You know, it's and that's why you have a tech, and that's why you have an art director. Yeah. That's why you have stylists, and that's why you have hair and makeup, and yada yada yada.
So Sam, where can people find what you're putting together? And like, where is the photo gallery? Like, where do they find
So
it?
the right now the photo glossary is that's part of my website, so it's samcornwallstudio.com, and then also thephotoglossary.com. And then we're on Instagram at thephotoglosary.com or at the photoglossary, and then on Substack at the photoglossary. Substack's gonna be more like long form blog stuff, and then Instagram right now is kind of just like stories. It's like all the actions in the stories, and I try to just like repost interesting work, and then repost like good BTS, good equipment tips, good business tips, kind of like whatever I come across that I can like repost into the stories. I will definitely, if people want to send me stuff that they posted and want to get eyeballs on, like I would love that. But I've
I was going to
tried.
ask if you want help with do you want help with the wiki? Are you looking for some volunteers?
Not right now. Someday,
Okay.
probably. Right now, it's more just like I want people. Like if people have stuff, the whole point of the Instagram is to promote people's work, right? Like it's
Yeah.
hard to get your work out there right now. The algorithms have changed. We're all blah 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 blah. There's just too much. There's too much noise, and it's hard to get noticed. So if you have work that you want to promote, like just DM me on Instagram, and I will be happy to like repost it or I'm putting it in the stories.
Yeah.
Because it's just and then maybe like and like yeah that maybe someone won't see it on the photo glossary but maybe they will, and also it will like help your algorithm, right? Because someone else is sharing it and you kind of don't know where the algorithm is going to push it. um yeah, Substack's another one. Yeah, you can do that on Substack, or you just email me, sam@samcornwall.com. I'm just happy to like share. I mean, one of the other component to the photo glossary is there's a crew directory. So I have like a list of like really great crew, people from like green level all the way to like super, super expert. And that was kind of like, I guess that was kind of how it really started, was with that list. And that originated out of like people just asking me for names, and I just wanted to make my own list. So I could just be like, "Here's this list." I have to, like, I don't know, because it got to the point where like people who I didn't even know would ask me. They'd be like, "Oh, I got your name from someone else," and like you're not available. Like who is available? I'm like, I don't know, but here's a list of like people who are all qualified and they're all really good and they want to work. Um, and then the other component of that is there's a list for photographers too, which at one point was like supposed to be kind of young photographers. Now I've kind of changed it so that like if you're assisting and transitioning into shooting, that's who I want to promote on that list. So yeah, if you're an assistant and you're transitioning into full-time shooting and you want to be on that list, let me know. Um,
Awesome.
yeah.
I will put all the links in the show notes to make it a little easier, especially for spelling purposes.
Yeah.
And and if people want to learn more about your drone work or digiteching or assisting, they can find you all at your website and also at the Photo Glossary, correct?
Yeah. The drone work that's kind of what I'm pushing now. It's really fun. It also just like brings that like up your production value of your shoot, just getting like one or two drone shots. And they're no longer, they're basically flying tripods now. Like you put long lenses on them, you can use them with people. Like it's no longer just that like boring drone shot. Like it's just, I use them just as a flying tripod. You get angles you can't get otherwise. You can't get them with a helicopter because you're too low, and you can't get them with a crane because you're too high. And yeah, you can do crazy stuff with them. Yeah.
Well, we'll have you come back and talk all about drones because
Yeah.
that is a whole other subject we could spend another 20 to 40 minutes talking about. So, but Sam, this has been so fun. I mean, I love getting into the weeds on like all the crew stuff, the assisting stuff, the pay, like what to think about, how to like maximize what you're doing, how to think beyond just like showing up and doing the job, but like what equipment could you bring? What other skill sets could you bring? Who to ask questions for, that you're kind of filling the gap of like the people who didn't go to school or the people who, the internship or the apprenticeship isn't really kind of the same as it was, 10, 15 years ago. So
There's
I
opportunity.
applaud you for starting this thing. And I'm glad to have you here on Creative Camp to be bringing more knowledge to the table because, the more people who do, the better our industry is.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for having me. This has been really fun.
Awesome. Well, we're going to put out the fire now, but we'll stoke it again real soon. And we will have Sam back to talk all about drones.
Yeah, that's a whole nother and endless topic, especially right now in the US, very controversial.
Oh, see, he's going to leave us on a cliffhanger. Don't you
Yeah,
love that?
there you
Well, thanks again, Sam. Well, thanks for listening to this episode. I just wanted to share that one of my biggest takeaways from this episode is really what makes set successful, and a creative, sustainable career. It's not just all the technical stuff, right? It's not all the button pushing or understanding like the perfect exposure or great composition, which all really, really helps. But the key that we really honed in on here is communication, right? Taking leadership. And how does that trickle down through how you run your sets, how you talk to the client, how you train your staff, how you empower people on set, and getting back to kind of that chain of command piece as well. And also like the money aspect, right, of really like paying people the rate that they want to be paid is really important, and trying not to cut corners, but maybe try to get, like, one of the things Sam had said was to get clever about it, right? There was even somebody who puts him down as a piece of equipment so that he could get his rate that he's looking for when they don't have it in the budget for a Digitech. So I'm really curious, did something in this episode make you think about something differently, or bring something up for you, or maybe left you still thinking about something? And if that's the case, I'd love to keep the conversation going. Head over to Instagram, creativecamp.pro, drop us a DM, tell us what you're thinking about, maybe an idea or a story that popped into your brain. We'd love to hear it and share it on the show. So yeah, again, head over to the DMs, drop us a note. We'd love to hear you there. And then before we wrap up, I just want to remind you that we are doing a goal setting workshop at the beginning of the year, January 7th and 8th. And if you want to expand your creativity, your business, really kind of align with maybe some personal goals you have, because there's many, many buckets, right? From your wellness to your faith to maybe just, you want to start living a little bit more. You want to start traveling a little bit more. It doesn't all have to be work without the play. So if you want to come and have space held for you in a really warm and inclusive environment, head over to the show notes, click the link to head over to creativecamp.pro, and we would love to have you come join us. If you'd like to support the show, you can buy us a coffee and sign up for our newsletter. Links are in the show notes below. We'll stoke the fire again real soon, but until then, keep creating, keep connecting, and I'll see you next time around the campfire.